Hi everyone, welcome to an exciting time over the next couple of hours at this webinar. My name is Kola Oyeneyin and I'm the CEO of Opportunity Global Fund. It's so great to have you all on this webinar. I'm joined today by fantastic speakers, both my partner who will be speaking as CEO of Volition Cap, and of course the managing partner at Henley & Partner, and Chidima as well, who's business development executive at Henley & Partner. We're really excited to engage all of you today, and I truly believe that we're going to have a quality session that really would answer some of the questions you've had around mobility and around wealth creation. As the CEO of Opportunity Global Fund, one of the most exciting things that I wake up to do every single day is leading a team of people who are truly passionate about unlocking prosperity, for Africans on the continent and those in the diaspora. Interestingly, Henley & Partners released a report earlier in the year that literally spoke to the fact that there's so much potential on the continent. $2.4 trillion of investable capital actually resides on the continent, and the World Bank highlights that in 2022 alone, Africans in diaspora remitted $96 billion to the continent. I'm excited about the possibility of combining these two, so like what you call divergence wealth, but actually that reside on the continent for different things. So my topic today is bordering around what I call from global mobility to global wealth. I truly believe very strongly that there are two major mobility challenges that Africans and diasporans tend to have, but more importantly, actually Africans: physical mobility and financial mobility. One of the reasons why I'm really excited about this partnership with Henley & Partners to do this webinar is that they're working on solving physical mobility, the ability to get people moving from one country to another in terms of second citizenship and passports. On our side, we've cracked financial mobility, essentially the ability to allow Africans who have the means to essentially coming into a fund that does not limit, that is not restricted to a particular jurisdiction. And they're able to freely move their capital and wealth around the world as they wish. And so for me, that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited about this webinar and what we do at OGF. We believe that Africans and diasporans should create wealth with minimal risk, with minimum currency and political risk. We want the middle class and mass affluent to enjoy the same investment options that are available to high net worth individuals. We don't believe that high net worth individuals, corporate investors and institutional investors should really get all of the seats at the table. You deserve to be at the table regardless of your investment or ticket size, and that's what we've tried to do at OGF. And that's why we've created a fund to reduce risk, political and currency, but to also ensure that you get back a very healthy return on your investment. When you look at the African continent, there are three major challenges that retail investors actually face. One, a very high entry barrier for every single investment instrument out there that really will return a high ROI on your investment. Most middle class and retail investors are simply unable to come in at a particular ticket size that they are asking for. I mean, during the Q&A session, I'll share with you a personal experience that I had in trying to access a global fund. The second thing is that majority of the African countries that most of our investors belong to, and most of the people that are joining this fund, most of the people that are joining this belong to face political and currency risk. We've seen massive currency devaluation over the last 5 years, where people's wealth literally got wiped away by a factor of 45–50% in the space of 3 to 5 years. I don't want to mention country names, but we've seen that across in some African countries. We've seen countries that have defaulted on their euro bonds on the continent as well. And 3 is the fact that because you don't have the ticket size to come in at a particular point or at a particular ticket size, you then end up getting a very short end of the stick. You don't get the kind of return that someone else who could come in with $1 million or $5 million would negotiate. And here comes OGF. That's what we've tried to solve. We're passionate about unlocking prosperity for Africans and the diasporas. We're passionate about unlocking prosperity for the middle class. We deeply believe that for every middle class that exists on the continent of Africa, there are 4 to 5 dependencies that really look up to them for survival. And so if you don't look after the middle class, essentially the middle will simply shrink away. Most people are a crisis away from bankruptcy. They are a crisis away from poverty, essentially. And so our focus on the middle class really allows us to begin to create strategies and funds that really serve this particular segment of the population. What is our solution? We created a fund. It's actually one of the very first funds in the world that has a license with unlimited number of investors from anywhere in the world except US citizens, and also allows for you to come in at a very small ticket size of $5,000 as a first subscription, and a follow-up of $1,000 monthly if you do want to add on to your investment. That doesn't exist in most part of the world where global funds exist, and that's what we've created. We've essentially gone to CIMA, Cayman Island Monetary Authority, and gotten them to approve a fund that allows for the middle class to come in at that level and serve retail investors. So what we've done is we brought you right at the same table as corporate and institutional investors. And I'm super excited about the possibilities that exist as a result of that. And so people tend to ask me most times that, okay, what is the strategy? How do you guys actually, how would you meet your hurdle rate? How do you deliver on your returns to investors? And what we've done is to create a very robust multi-asset strategy that essentially allows us to invest in commodities, venture funding, digital assets, fixed income, US equities, and real estate. And at the heart of this, we have a very strong and experienced trading desk team that trades a number of asset classes to enable us to deliver on a strategy for pretty much all our investors. And based on that, by the time we combine our investment, our light touch investment strategy with our active portfolio of trading, we're able to deliver between 12 to 15%, even in a year like 2023, 2024, where global markets are essentially down to our investors. And really, we could do as high as 20%, by the time we get into, we enter sort of like the upside of the market with a bullish outlook. How does this work? We have a minimum investment of $5,000, which essentially you can really begin to contribute or subscribe on the website, opportunity.com/register, create an account, go through KYC, and then essentially just begin to invest. And it operates almost like every other fund out there, except that it's a very nimble fund, very capital efficient, and you don't have the high overhead that really eats into the return on your investment. Our capital allocation is also very diverse. We allocate about 50% to low risk asset classes. About 25% of our allocation goes to medium risk asset classes, and I'm happy to speak more to this during the Q&A session. And then we have about 20% into high risk asset classes as well. And so for us, the idea of this is that we're able to essentially hedge across different asset classes and deliver alpha to all our investors. In terms of what we've done as fund managers, I'm a registered and licensed fund manager in 2 jurisdictions of the world. So is my partner as well. And cumulatively over the last 5 years, we've managed over $35 million in asset under management. And so we do know what it takes to deliver returns to our investors anywhere in the world. We have a very solid team of investment management, trading, and investor relations that essentially ensure that your investment in OGF returns, returns at the end of every single investment cycle. And finally, one thing that is also extremely important is that we take the process of our governance process extremely seriously. And so the fund has 3 layers of governance. We do have an active advisory board, and the fund has an internal investment committee that essentially allocates capital to pretty much every single asset class that we need to invest in at the end of every subscription cycle that we have. And then outside of the internal structure of the fund itself, we have Acquivise, and there are administrators in Mauritius. They essentially have, they have about $216 million asset under administration, well experienced, to ensure that as far as the administrative side of the fund is concerned, they deliver KYC, effectively reporting to the Mauritius FSI effectively to ensure that the governance side of the fund, as far as regulators are concerned, is extremely effective. And finally, internally, we do have a risk management framework and a risk management team that ensures that we are allocating, we're allocating capital to asset based on a very effective VAR model. And so if you are excited about everything you've heard so far and you really want to start to talk to our team about OGF, why don't you scan the QR code on your screen now? It takes you straight to where you could get started almost immediately, and our team will be on hand to reach out to you. Or simply just log on to opportunic.com/register, or take down this email on the screen, and our team would get back to you as soon as they get your email. I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to be having. I'm happy to take your questions around OGF, particularly deep down into our strategy and into some of the concerns that you may have. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the sessions, and looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kola. This was, really interesting. It's actually nice to find out that, there's so much funds that are being remitted into the continent, just shows the potential of what we have here. I'll just do a brief recap of some of the things you said. You said Opportunity Global Fund provides an opportunity for Africans to access global funds with a reduced entry barrier, which is usually not the case for global funds. You also said the fund has reduced risk and a healthy return, which I think a lot of people really want to hear, and that it's a multi-asset strategy that is being used for OGF because you have also put a strong trading desk in place to be able to manage these funds. For more information, if you're not able to scan the QR code that was put in KO's presentation, please check the chat box, and we have put that there now. So we're going to be taking a few question and answers for Kola. So Kola, I have a few questions for you, and I'll be reading them out. So the first question, someone asks, do you offer halal investments?
Thanks, Ife. Well, so OGF has a fund of funds strategy. So what that simply means is that we're able to create specific funds to meet everyone's specific needs. So if you do have a need or a requirement for what you call halal or sukuk instruments, absolutely, our team can work with you to create that specifically. So do get in touch with us, and we can create that as a separate fund, being a fund of funds strategy. Yes.
All right. Actually, I think you can also get the email addresses in the chat box, and send a mail, and somebody definitely will come back to you on this. So I have someone ask, what has been your average percentage return over the last 5 years? Rosemary.
To Rosemary's question is a very good one. What we can tell you is what we're forecasting for the next couple of years ahead. OGF is a new fund, literally just became live this last quarter. Our performance in terms of what we believe our hurdle rate would be for the next 2 years, given where the market is 12 to 15% on the dollar. We do believe that there's an opportunity to have a much higher upside as markets globally will begin to sort of like turn up the curve and perform much better over the next 3 or 5 years to 18 to 20%. Our plan really is to ensure that retail investors do get to a point where they're able to really earn higher than they would when they do, compared to when they do your plain vanilla dollar funds or mutual funds that are out there that typically will give you between 7 to 8%. That's hardly a path to prosperity. It's hardly a path to wealth creation, but simply because of just the way large funds are created, they're not really designed for you. They're designed for large institutions, and it works. It works for the strategy that they're designed for. For Opportunity Global Fund, the core mandate has always been the ability to unlock prosperity for Africans and the diaspora, meaning that because of a very efficient strategy in terms of fund management, capital deployment, and allocation, we're able to really target 12 to 15% annual return on the dollar.
All right, thank you, Kola. I'll just ask one more question so that we can go to the next speaker. But I just want to let everyone know that Kola is going to be in the Q&A box, so he'll be responding to your questions. So the last question I'll ask you is from Mikhail. He said, do we get to see the companies that the fund invests in on the platform, or is that proprietary? Please.
So that's discretionary. So OGF is a discretionary fund, the same way hedge funds are discretionary funds. What we do is take all of the stress from you without you having to think about what the actual companies are. But what we can tell you are the different asset classes, as you saw in that portfolio. So pretty much from commodities, African and US equities, to some venture funding. And by the time you mix all of these assets together, fixed income as well, and our in-house trading desk that essentially trades different asset classes. When you mix all of that together, it generates the kind of alpha that you wouldn't get from traditional funds or funds that really are tilted more towards institutional investors. So that's why the discretionary fund, in terms of just taking that burden off the investor. I see someone asking why US citizens are not excluded, and that's simply because of US's policies generally around taxes. This is a fund that has been designed to be extremely tax efficient for Africans and diasporas who are looking at ways of ensuring that the tax they pay on their capital gains are quite efficient. So it's a Cayman-based fund managed out of Mauritius, and typically that would mean that for a US citizen, you have to go through a structure to be able to access the fund, and that structure we do also provide, and you'll see that as we go along in the conversation, that allows you to come in through an entity into OGF.
All right, thank you, Kola. I would have really loved you to keep answering the questions live, but because of time, but I just want to mention to everyone that Kola is going to be responding to your questions in the Q&A box, so don't worry, just look up the answers. Definitely.
All right. I'll be in the Q&A.